Hey everybody, another beautiful day in paradise. Whew, so Bernie Sanders recently put out 5 amendments.
And let me very briefly explain what those amendments are and what they would do. First Amendment would reduce the military budget by 10% and use that $740 billion in savings to invest in distressed communities in every state in this country that have been ravaged by extreme poverty, mass incarceration, deindustrialization, and decades of neglect. In fact, that the Defense Department remains the only federal agency in America that hasn't been able to pass an independent audit. So that deals with the Second Amendment that I have introduced. I don't think it is too much to say to the largest agency of the federal government that you have to pass an independent audit. There is nobody in the Senate who does not believe that there is massive waste and fraud at the Pentagon. Defense contractor after defense contractor has pled guilty to fraud. We have massive cost overruns, and all that Second Amendment that I'm offering does, which is co-sponsored by Senator Grassley, longtime Republican leader here, Senator Lee, Republican from Utah, and Senator Wyden of Oregon, and myself. All that we're asking is that there be an independent audit of the Defense Department, and that be completed no later than fiscal year 2025. Not a very radical, I think, is one that I would hope and expect would have wide support right here, and I think does have support among the American people, and certainly has widespread support among the medical community and the epidemiologists of this country. Just yesterday, I was participating in a hearing of the Health, Education, Labor Committee, and we had the leading experts in this country, including several representatives of the Trump administration, Dr. Fauci and others, talking about the pandemic and what we can do about it. And there was widespread consensus. Nobody, I think, has any doubt anymore, maybe except Donald Trump, that masks are a very, very important preventative measure. Not going to solve all of the problems, but the evidence is overwhelming that people who wear masks in the public when they're around other people are less likely to transmit the virus or receive the virus. Nobody doubts that anymore. So the question that we have got to ask ourselves is, how does it happen that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, the strongest economy in the world, we have doctors and nurses today who are dealing with people with COVID-19 who don't even have the personal protective equipment that they need? How in God's name does that happen? We're spending 18% of our GDP on healthcare, twice as much as any other country, and yet we cannot provide a dollar mask to a doctor or a nurse whose life is at stake. But it's not only doctors and nurses. What a number of countries around the world are doing, which is very smart, is they are producing or acquiring large numbers of high-quality masks, and they're distributing those masks to all of the households in their country. We should be making sure that every household in this country has the masks that they need. That will save us lives. There's an estimate from the University of Washington. It could save 30,000 lives in this pandemic if 95% of the American people wore masks, and it would save us substantial sums of money, because it's a lot cheaper to invest in masks than in hospitalization for those who have the virus. Fourth Amendment I have filed, Madam President, will prohibit funding for military aid and logistical support for the disastrous Saudi-led war in Yemen. I believe it is past time that we put an end to our unconstitutional and unauthorized participation in this war. And on this issue, I am certainly not alone. A bipartisan majority of the U.S. Senate has already voted 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times, to halt all U.S. military support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. It is time for us to do that again. This time, not just in words, but in action, no money going toward U.S. participation in this horrible war, which is destroying a nation of some of the poorest, most desperate people on earth. So that's the Fourth Amendment. And I think it would be hard for anybody here to deny, because it's already been in one form or another passed 3 times. So let's get some teeth into it. And the last amendment that I have filed, Madam President, Mr. President, I'm sorry, would reduce the defense budget by 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1%. Not a lot of money. And use that money to make our nation safer by reaching out to people throughout the world, by expanding educational and cultural exchange programs. In other words, the theory behind this whole bill is that by spending $740 billion building planes and tanks and guns.
First Amendment, well, I'm not going to go through all in order, but I will say the amendments really cool. So I can just kind of put a broad statement on this. One amendment about 1/10 of 1% going to educating cultures, that makes sense. Think about the long run, guys. Are we always going to want to go into war? Are we going to always want to go into war with everybody? Or are we going to want to learn to get along at some point because we live on the same planet? I would want the second option, get along. Instead of hating each other and going into this whole race and, racial tension and bigotry, we could just actually educate ourselves about each other's culture. We can learn about one another, and maybe we can respect each other. Maybe we might not respect each other's certain cultures about things that we've done, but at least respect each other enough to know that, hey, it exists and it's not in your culture. Okay? The second one being about 10% of the military budget that they're planning. I think it's like $700 billion or something like that. To go to the economy. That sounds like a sweet idea. Why don't we deserve? We're dealing with a pandemic right now. We haven't even gotten a second stimulus check. People are still out of work. We don't know what's going to happen once we start getting everyone to go back. We don't know. We don't know if people are going to lose their jobs or businesses are going to go out. There's already small businesses that are losing, that are almost foreclosing because their bread and butter is having people come to face-to-face interaction, live action performance, all this stuff, and dinner and everything like that. So, anyways. So I think it does make sense to put a little 10% of that into the economy. It makes sense. This is for the American people. It's for our people. It just makes a lot of sense. Defense system should be audited? Abso-freaking-lutely. That's one of the other amendments. I agree with that. We need to know where our money is going, guys. We need to know. We've spent 2 decades on wars that we didn't need to go to. Afghan and Iraq wars. So where is the money going? We should be able to have someone monitor that. We need to make sure that their defense system, because they could be lying to us for all we know, because they've been using kid gloves on us, on American people for a while, because they don't think we can handle the truth. The reality is they just don't want to tell us the truth until they need to tell us the truth, until they're pushed to a corner. That's the reality of stuff. And that's just not right. That's just not right. So I do believe that an audit system makes sense. Masks. Yes, there should be more masks. I could not believe that Dr. Fauci had told the American people in the beginning, oh, hey, don't bother wearing masks. And then later on, it turns out you needed to wear masks. And the only reason why he did that was so that way he can help first responders. Okay, again, kid gloves on us, babying us, telling us, oh, we couldn't handle maybe telling us the truth and saying, hey, we need to give these masks to first responders. So don't go crazy on the spending on these masks. You don't think we could have handled that? Or at least have told us to improvise in the meantime while first responders were receiving the mask? Bandanas, anything you could have told us instead of telling us, oh, we're all good. You don't need a mask. That's crazy. That's crazy. So yes, we need masks. It's finally, hell, there's a video of Trump saying the exact thing about wearing masks.
A model yesterday, saying that if there is universal masks, it would be a net positive for GDP. We know the IHME model says that if there were universal masks, that it would be beneficial, it would save lives. So if there is an economic benefit, sir, and there is a public health benefit, sir, why not go forward and say there should be mandatory masks all across this country?
Well, I don't know if you need mandatory, because you have many places in the country where people stay very long distance. You talk about social distancing, but I'm all for masks. I think masks are good. I would wear, if I were in a group of people and I was close.
You would wear one?
Oh, I have. I mean, people have seen me wearing one. If I'm in a group of people where we're not, 10 feet away, but usually I'm not in that position, and everyone's tested. Because I'm the president, they get tested before they see me. But if I were in a tight situation with people, I would absolutely.
You think the public will see that at some point?
I mean, I'd have no problem. Actually, I had a mask on. I sort of liked the way I looked. Okay, I thought it was okay. It was a dark black mask, and I thought it looked okay. It looked like the Lone Ranger. But no, I have no problem with that. I think, and if people feel good about it, they should do it.
Okay. Now Trump's saying you should wear a mask. Just think about it. Okay. Lastly, the Saudi war in Yemen, us funding it. That's ridiculous that we're still doing that. That money needs to go to the economy, needs to come to us. We need it more than Saudi Arabia needs it. That's the truth, guys. This is, I don't even know what else to say to that. I mean, what's the argument here? The fact that we're still in Afghanistan, our troops, is crazy. And the fact that we're investing in Yemen in a war, it's crazy too. I think that we need to focus more about, building our economy again. So that way America can be great again, but not in the way Trump says it. Yeah, just on that note, yeah, I think all these amendments are essential and necessary. I think that we need them. And yeah, I hope that, I hope people actually take this into consideration.